Morning, everybody. I think the stage is set for what I'm going to talk about because we already had Jayesh sir talking about predictive intelligence on weather, and we had Samir talking about how all these digital transformations have started to impact the enterprise and making it smarter. So I'm going to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. You're all aware of the first industrial revolution. We had steam engines in the 18th century, and then you had the second industrial revolution with electrical cables and ability to transmit radio and wireless. And then you had the third industrial revolution, which is coming to an end now, which was around computers and the internet, which started in the 80s and now is becoming the fourth industrial revolution, which is around AI. So we are entering now an eon where algorithms will replace experts. And I know a lot of you sitting in the room are going to say, what are you talking about, because it's going to make a lot of jobs redundant, it makes people uncomfortable. But the reality is that, we set the stage for this ourselves. Like a few years ago at these industry conferences, we were all saying big data, big data, big data. Then we said cloud, cloud, cloud. Now we have a lot of data sitting in the cloud, and we are saying, okay, what do we do with it, right? And you make use of that data to make smarter predictions about what you can do with it, and also you start using it to build intelligence around your services and your products. And that's where that data can actually be interpreted in a way that no human being can, because the problem with human beings is that we give way to emotions, and our judgment can be colored by a lot more than just data. And a lot of management decision making really is not about purely data, but also about gut feel and instinct and whatever we call it, emotions. And to tell you the truth, for even professions like doctors or lawyers, the moment you start thinking of, what will data and AI do to these professions, and you're like, okay, at the end, what a doctor does is diagnoses basis the data that he observes, either using a stethoscope or by reading your temperature. And that's not something that in the conceivable future, technology won't do for you. So I think we are entering a very interesting phase. This is just the beginning, and I'm going to walk you through some of the applications of that. So you might be thinking, okay, AI, somebody else talking about AI. Yeah, we've heard all this shit before, and is there anything real this time? Because AI, people have been talking about since the 60s. And the basic algorithms, honestly, the basic fundamentals of AI haven't really changed from the 60s. The models are still the same. Everything that was invented back then, is still around, and most of it is still being used. So what is it different this time around? Why is the world going crazy about AI? And the reason is that we are sitting at a juncture where we have unprecedented computational capacity. We have unprecedented connectivity. We have raw volumes of data sitting in our warehouses, data warehouses. And the processing speed of some of the phones in your pocket is like 1,000 times more than the computers that were used to send the man on the moon, right? So we have like an unprecedented mix of ingredients that was required to take AI to the next level, right? Because you had all these algorithms, you had these neural networks, and you had all these predictive algorithms around for the last 40 years. But nothing really happened because to make things happen, you needed a IBM Watson level of computing power, or you always thought you need these supercomputers to start generating AI stuff for you. The reality is that every single app we use on our phone today already has some components of AI in it. When you open Google and you start typing a query, Google is already suggesting what that query might be. Most of the time, you don't even need to complete the query, right? Because Google already knows what you had in mind. When you open Facebook and you're reading the feed, Facebook is trying to predict what kind of content you will like and whose content you might want to see. They have these complicated algorithms at play there, which are actually trying to show you what you actually were looking for, right? And we don't even realize that all this is happening in the blink of an eye, and this is all AI in the making. So the pivotal moment, every industrial revolution has this pivotal moment. So the steam engine, really started the first industrial revolution. I think the pivotal moment for AI really was this November 2016 Google blog, where the engineers talked about how suddenly Google Translate had become, in one single leap, they had gone beyond what they had done in the last 10 years. And that leap was very simple. You know, if you remember, if you had played around with Google Translate 2 years ago, it was horrible, right? It would just do word by word translation, never made sense. You did English to German and you tried to tell your German colleague something, and he would say, what garbage, right? And the reason is because that's not how real translation works, right? Usually when we as humans start learning a new language, we think of translating the entire sentence, you know, and how to say that sentence in another language. And it becomes even more complex when it's an idiom or a phrase or, you know, some sort of colloquial sentence that doesn't exist in the other language. And therefore, when Google realized this, they started building this neural network where they started feeding a lot of pre-human translated literature into the system. So you would have, you know, right from the Bible to, you know, all the classics, which were translated already in multiple languages across the world. They started feeding those books into the system. They started feeding a lot of research papers into the system. They started feeding everything that they could find, which was already translated by humans, into that system. And lo and behold, you know, one fine day, the system actually invented its own internal language. So earlier on, when they were translating Korean to Japanese, it would translate Korean to English, English to Japanese. And now the machine actually invented its own internal language, which was doing this translation on the fly, right? Nobody told the machine to do that. The neural network actually came up with a representative language that could represent every language in the world in its own computer format, and then it could be used for translation. And now Google translations are 95% accurate. It's the same level of accuracy as a human being, right? And you should try this. I was in China and I used the Google Translate app to talk to the taxi drivers, to talk to everybody. You speak into it, it speaks Chinese out. The Chinese people speak into it, it speaks English out, right? Works like a charm. And the reason they got there was because they have unprecedented computing capacity. They have unprecedented data into the system, right? And this can happen in every domain. When we talk about predictive intelligence, what does it really mean, right? So this is a Gartner chart that they released a couple of years back. But basically, all of us started with descriptive analytics, where we had some sort of analytics tool sitting in the cloud, you know, looking at all the data, making some meaning out of it. We started getting into diagnostic analytics as we had more computing power, where we said, okay, now what can we do with this data? Can we take decisions based on this data? And then the next level, which is happening and playing out right now in almost every app you use or every enterprise software that you have, is predictive analytics, right? Where you say, okay, now that I know what's happening, you know, can I start making predictions of what will happen next, right? And where we are heading to in the next 5 years is really prescriptive analytics, or what we call in the B2C world, you know, recommendations, right? So you have Amazon telling you what to buy next. You have Booking.com trying to predict what hotel you would like, right? This is all prescriptive analytics, where you've taken it to the next level and you're saying, can I actually not just offer insight, can I start offering foresight, right? And this is not rocket science stuff, you know, this is all, there are algorithms and libraries available out there. There's TensorFlow, and you know, there's Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook. They've all released APIs and libraries that anyone can consume to start doing this stuff. At Ixigo, you know, we are a travel company. What we do is basically we aggregate travel data from tons of travel sites, you know, airline websites, online travel portals, and we start showing you search comparison on top of it so that you can decide where to buy your ticket, right? It's a classic meta search. Now, 5 years back, you know, we figured out that one of the problems that nobody was solving was that most train tickets in India got waitlisted, right? And if you had a wait list of 123 on sleeper class on Punjab Mail, you had no clue whether it's going to confirm or not before the train left the station, right? And most of the time you would keep checking every hour, wait the last day, and then, you know, maybe you're not confirmed, then you're looking at an alternate way to get there. So we said, let's solve this problem. So we built this app that actually picked up your PNR from your SMS inbox, started tracking it every day on the IRC, or every few hours on the website, and then started analyzing the trends of how quickly this was confirming, right? Once we had data for about 5 million PNRs, the system started generating recommendations at a 90% accuracy. So we started saying the exact probability that this will confirm with for every PNR that came into our system. Now we have data for more than 100 million PNRs in the system accumulated over the last 4 years, and we are at 97% accuracy in terms of our prediction, right? And the reason we've been able to do this is just, again, the massive volume of data that we are able to mine, right? And the algorithms are very plain and simple. It's not, the algorithms part actually is not the harder part. The harder part is getting the right data from the right set of users, right? More recent launch, we just went live with this last month. We said, most of the time the problem really is when you want to take a break, you know when you want to fly. So I want to, let's say, go to New Zealand in December. What I don't know is, when should I book that ticket, right? Because you go every day and the fare is different. Every month the fare keeps changing. You're like, oh, am I buying too early? Am I buying too late? You never know when is the right time to buy that ticket. And we said, let's go and solve that problem, because it's not very hard to solve, because all you need to analyze is data, right? Based on seasonality, time of the year, airline, route. You have tons of data that you can start mining. Like we do about 10 million flight searches a month. We have all the data from all those searches across 100 different providers, airlines, OTAs, etc. We started mining that data, and now we started saying, hang on, don't book this right now. I mean, it's very counterintuitive. Somebody comes to your shop and you turn him away saying, don't buy anything on my shop today. But, guess what? It builds trust, right? So we've started now giving predictions where you were able to say, okay, this is a good day to buy. Please buy this ticket right now, or wait. Don't buy it right now because we expect it to fall in the next 10 days, right? And this is for real. You can just go in the Ixigo app. For the top 20 routes in India, it's already live. We're going to roll it out to the top 100 routes. But basically, we started telling people when is the right time to buy. For international, we'll probably roll out by the end of the year, because you need more data for that. Everyone here probably has used Uber, right? Now, Uber is a great example of a company that uses a lot of data that it gets from its users and its drivers in order to predict and forecast the demand and supply. So the reason why they're able to do surge pricing and able to do 2x, 3x, 5x is because they have already information on what's going to happen next. And the reason they have that is they use completed rides, app opens. Every time you open the Uber app and you're searching for a cab, it's a data point for Uber that somebody is looking for a cab, right? Demand. Weather conditions. So if Uber knows that it's going to rain in the next 1 hour, it already knows that the demand is going to shoot up like crazy, right? Current riders. So if it knows that there are lots of riders who are going to terminate in this locality, it knows there'll be a lot of supply being created in this locality, right? Past history. So if it knows that 9 a.m. Cyber City, Gurgaon, there's going to be crazy number of rides being completed because people will be reaching their office. There's a lot of drivers that will suddenly be available. It's an interesting data it can start using to match demand to supply. Now, Uber does this every day in and day out, and the moment they have more and more data, they're getting into a position where that becomes their biggest defense against competition, right? Because it's really going to boil down to not who's going to make the best sense of this data, because trust me, most of these algorithms, if you have a good AI ML guy, most of these algorithms are not rocket science. What is the more difficult part is having access to the right data. And once you have massive amounts of data, it becomes your biggest defense, which is why a lot of this stuff will be won by the larger companies, because at least for the horizontal use cases, because they have more data than everybody else. Hospitality. How many of you have used Airbnb? Okay, we have a few people who've used it. Now, Airbnb's real mojo is not on the demand side, it's on the supply side. As a homeowner who's renting out his home, as somebody who's giving away his apartment for sharing, Airbnb actually tells you day by day what your pricing needs to be. They have analyzed massive trends across the year, every day they know what the demand likely is going to be. They will tell you to tweak your price up or down in order to maximize your revenue, right? Beat that. I think the hospitality industry today still works on, this is my peak season rate, this is my off-season rate, right? You have 2 or 3 rates and you're happy with that. Here's a company that for every apartment in the world knows what the rate every day needs to be, right? And you can't beat that so easily because you need tons of data for it. Customer support. I'm coming back to Uber because this is a company that has started using AI and big data like anything, right? Now, how many of you have actually done this with Uber? Like you had a problem with the ride, you complained to them, and you got an instant refund. It happened to me like at least 10 times, right? Now, you know what? They have a very complex algo playing at the back end, which looks at your ratings, which looks at your past rider history, how much money you've spent with them, And they've already bucketed you as a consumer where would they rather give you an instant refund as customer delight, or would they take you through that painful agent flow where somebody will write back to you and you write back to them, or you pick up the phone and call. By the way, they don't have call centers anyway. They have actually, for 95% of things that flow into this flow, there is no human involvement, right? And you might not realize it because you might feel, okay, it took 10 minutes, so there must have been something, but they have these random delays as well to make it feel like there is human involvement. But for most of the stuff they're doing on their customer support, there is zero human involvement, right? And the more the algorithm learns from past behavior of how this person actually has behaved both on the driver side and on the customer side, the better it gets, right? On the driver side, they have a very similar flow. We never get access to it, but drivers also have their own. Drivers don't have a number, by the way, that they can call. If they ever have problems with Uber, they have to go through this same flow, right? And they have it in Hindi as well in India now. But basically, you go through this flow based on who you are, what you've been up to, how long you've been in their system, what your rating is, etc., etc. You might get different outcomes from that flow, right? And that's what customer support is going to pivot to, right? So don't be surprised if a lot of BPOs won't be around in the future, because 90% of the work, the BPOs will be around for the high value stuff or the high touch point stuff, but 90% of the queries are going to be resolved like this in every application that I can think of out there. Even in the enterprise, why should a IT help desk be manned by like 10 people who need to pick up calls? Just 90% of the queries that you get actually can be mapped and solved instantly, right? Hiring. There are companies in the US, because, there's an insight, obviously, that the best candidates are not looking for jobs, right? The best folks are always like, I'm good, I'm being paid well, I don't want to move somewhere. However, there are telltale signs on social, on your profile, on how you've been using LinkedIn and how you've been, doing certain things in public forums that can tell people that you might be open to a switch, right? There are companies in the US, and there's now a couple of startups in India that actually use AI to predict when these good guys want to switch and when is the right time to hit them, right? You see that little thing at the bottom saying more likely to move? That's their secret sauce, right? And it's amazing. So we've actually demoed one of these things, and it's mind-blowing how this thing could work. But it seems there's enough data out there on Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, etc., that can make this work. I want to show you this tool for retention that a few startups in India already are using. Once you cross 100, 200 people, obviously you can't have a one-on-one chat with your employees every day, anymore. It's an anonymous bot that employees can chat with, and it has some empathy, right? So this employee is sharing that he feels sad because he's never been appreciated. He would love to spend 10% of his time exploring other functions. Now, the way it works is that whatever is happening here never gets shared verbatim with management. The bot actually derives inferences. So Amber actually will go and derive all the inferences from all these interactions and escalate only the most meaningful information filtered up to the management so that they can execute it, right? This is the future of employee engagement, believe it or not, right? Because employees will never come and tell HR or management what their problems is. They will share it anonymously. They will share it among themselves. They might share it with this bot as long as they trust that it doesn't go verbatim to management, and they've started doing this. I know at least 10 companies who are using this now. It's a 6-month-old product. So what about security, you might be thinking, right? Because security is also something all the people sitting in the room are worried about. So one thing on security is that cloud adoption is growing rapidly, right? This is global data, IT infrastructure spend. If you look at, 37% has already moved to the cloud, public or private. There's a lot of guys still sitting on traditional data centers, but I think the writing on the wall is very clear. However, many cloud applications today, and this is a survey done by Netscope, they looked at across functions, marketing, HR, collaboration, finance, accounts, CRM, sales, software, and they started mapping out that, how many such applications are being used per enterprise. And obviously marketing, you have a lot of SaaS tools being used by everyone, HR, collaboration, etc. On IT services, they're less, but the worst part is that most of those which are being used today are not enterprise ready. And when you say not enterprise ready, a lot of them do not have the kind of security features that are actually desirable, right? And this is actually very scary, which means that a lot of enterprises out there are using IT service or application management tools which are not very secure themselves, right? And I think if you look at even on the server side, there's like things like DDoS attacks which are becoming so prevalent. We had another massive one, just a month back. I don't think any of us would have denied that they faced it sometime or the other, where their public infrastructure servers have been taken down by these distributed denial of service attacks. Very hard to prevent, but what is key here is to know when it's happening, right? Because most of us find out post hoc that there was a DDoS attack and our server went down. Now, the good news is that within the logs and within the behavior of the server, CPU, memory, etc., lies clues to when a DDoS attack is happening, right? And based on the data mining and the trends that you see out there, MIT, by the way, has launched this tool called AI Square, which does early DDoS detection. And the only thing they do is just look at data. Now, they will bucket the data into, this is surely a DDoS attack, this might be a DDoS attack, and this is not a DDoS attack, because there'll be a lot of false positives, right? Now, the might things will go to your systems team, where the exact log entries will come to them, and they can say whether it is actually a DDoS attack or not. And then based on their input, the algorithm improves itself, because next time it's not going to flag that, it's just going to bucket it into yes or no. If we use Gmail, we are already using AI every day, right? Gmail has the most sophisticated phishing and spam detection filter on the planet. And the only reason it is because all of us mark or report spam very frequently, right? If you don't do that, please do that, because that's the only way Gmail learns what is spam and what is not spam, right? But they've been able to learn these things so well that I think now less than 0.2% chance of a real email actually going into the spam box, which used to be like 2 to 3% 5 years back. There's a less than 0.2% chance of a false positive today. Facebook is trying out, same stuff to detect fake news because, it's very hard to detect fake news headlines and real news headlines. A big problem out there, but they have started using AI to do it. Sales, you might be thinking, sales surely, can't be disrupted by AI, right? It needs human intervention, people talking to each other, especially B2B sales, enterprise sales, you have to come to these events, you have to talk to people, you have to have dinner with them, and that's how enterprise sales happen. Sorry, that's already been disrupted in the US, right? In the US, almost 40% of B2B sales are now originating through bots, believe it or not. That nice email you get saying, hi, this is Mark, we saw that you downloaded our product and tried it, what is your feedback, please write back to me, is actually written by a bot. You can't tell because it looks so human-like. And the guy follows up rigorously, right? Every 7 days he's following up with you saying, hey, I hope you saw my email, it looks like you're busy, can you give me some feedback on my product? And then 20 days later he's like, if you don't want this, please let me know, but I thought maybe a 10-minute call would be great. This is actually all sales automation, right? Original email, first follow-up, you get 30% response, second follow-up. We all know this, right? We've all gone down this. It's usually at the fourth follow-up that the guy will actually revert. And why should I need to remember and write back to him every time? It's such a waste of my time, right? I would actually trust a bot better than me to do this for me, right? There are at least 20 companies out there which do this sales automation, which will track leads. So basically give them email IDs, they will result in closures. So the bot will close for you if it can happen over email. The bot will set up a call with the most likely hot prospects. You don't need to filter these prospects because these people have already written back to the bot. But the bot poses as you. And the bot, you can give them templates of your writing style. The bot adapts to it. The bot will actually come up with its own templates in the future. So today, enterprise is not very far removed from what B2C companies are doing in terms of AI. In fact, you pick up a segment and there is tons of startups out there which are already providing massive amounts of insights, predictive intelligence, and ways to implement artificial intelligence, whether it is on productivity, whether it is on customer engagement, HR and talent. We went through the examples, B2B sales and marketing. I mean, marketing, I can go on and on and on for an hour. There's like tons of things that you can do on marketing automation, how you bid for keywords on Google, etc., that really rely on predictive intelligence. There's also a lot of finance and operations stuff today. I mean, we've just moved to a system that does automated receivable chasing for us. Because writing these, I mean, finance guy is also putting a reminder saying 7 days later, write back to this guy to collect the check. It just doesn't make sense, right? I mean, the finance guy will still do it, but it will actually be a bot, right? So it will use their ID to chase for payments, and you will get the payment, and the payment will send an alert and will stop, that alert will stop that bot from chasing that person, right? Today, this is all happening very inefficiently in most organizations. Data science, obviously, tons of companies. But I think security is that big area where a lot is still yet to come in terms of how all the data and analytics that you're collecting, both on the cloud and on the workstations, can be used in order to predict when an attack will happen or when it is likely to happen rather than waiting for it to happen. But the big outcome, if we want to be prepared, is that enterprises now need to be thinking like startups, right? Gone are the days where enterprises have enterprise apps and startup have these. Today your employees will come and say, why does your app work like this? I expect it to work like, and they'll show you a B2C app, and they'll say, your user experience should be like this. Why do I have this 1990s looking UI which doesn't work half the time, right? So the expectation on the employee side has gone up like 10x because they are comparing you with the best out there. They are comparing you with the Uber, Airbnb, Amazon. Even though you're an enterprise IT company, you never actually thought that way. But that's the user experience you're being compared against. So the delivery method, which used to be on-premises, is now cloud-based. Pricing, which used to be perpetual license, is all SaaS now. UX needs to be personalized. It needs to be more like B2C. Intelligence, we all just saw that we can't escape the AI ML wave. Growth is now not driven by sales, just by sales, but by product, right? And purchase decisions, which used to be very top-down, many a times now employees will come and tell you what to buy, right? It's all becoming bottoms up. And the last thing, which is very critical, is that how you measure your success on all your employee IT initiatives. Again, you are going to look at engagement with the same eyes that I look at engagement with, which is how many DAOs did we have today? How many MAUs, the daily active users, monthly active users? What's the NPS score? What's the net promoter score? And because every time you resolve, there's going to be an automated prompt or notification saying, how was your experience with our help desk today? You're going to rate them on 1 to 10, and all that data is going to get collated, and at the end of the month, you'll get a report saying, this is how good we are doing. Because that's how B2C companies work. That's how Amazon works on every delivery. Why can't your own software work like that? So the moral of the whole story is, how prepared are we really sitting in this room, right? I'm sure that on data, a lot of you will say, I'm very prepared, I'm capturing all the data I need to make decisions. I have big data infrastructure set up. I have a Hadoop cluster, this and that, right? I'm sure we are already, because that's sanity. If you don't have data, you're shooting in the air. So that's really sanity. You need to have that data. I think what you need to start thinking of right now is, okay, what is it that could improve in terms of my customer experience or my employee experience if I could actually mine this data and start predicting their behavior well in advance, right? And just like I showed you examples from my domain where we did it, I'm sure there are a lot of examples in your domain where you can improve the customer experience or employee experience dramatically just by knowing well ahead what they might be looking for, right? Or what they might be expecting. Because that's the aha moment. When people see what they were expecting without having to type for it or look for it, that's the aha moment, right? And then once you have that, and you start seeing a viral loop between people acting on what you showed them or what you gave them, and then liking it or not liking it, or clicking on it or not clicking on it, then you start getting the data required to make those intelligent recommendations, which is the holy grail for all AI projects, all ML projects, saying, can I actually start recommending what this guy should be doing? Can I actually start recommending, what this person wants to see right now? And that's a function of a lot more data. That's a function of the interaction data that people have with the predictive analysis that you threw up, right? But once you have that, you complete the circle, because these recommendations are going to give you more data based on what people act on those recommendations on. They might transact using them. They might purchase something using them, right? And that gives you more data again for your next, improvement. Last but not the least, because I know that it's a scary future. Elon Musk has a lot of thoughts on, what the future will look like, and he's already working on a brain computer interface, because he thinks that as humans, the biggest inefficiency is that we are not able to transmit our thoughts. So human-to-human interaction language works. Human-to-computer interaction keyboard is a big bandwidth constraint, right? because you have to either use voice, and voice is becoming big, by the way. So there's like 25 million voice-enabled devices in the US. It's only going to get bigger. Google Home, Alexa driving that change. But if you think of the slow speed with which you are able to tell computers what you want, and then the computers are able to give it back to you, I think the only way to solve it in the long term is a brain-computer interface. And it might sound like rocket science or the Matrix, but people are actually working on it. Elon Musk has founded a new company that's going to do just that, Neuralink. So the scary future we're talking about, the only thing that will save us, this is something that machines cannot do. Machines cannot use emotions for making judgments, which most of the time is a frailty for humans, but can be useful for humans in certain situations, right? They cannot gauge social perceptions. They cannot know the social perception of what is being done. They cannot read emotions yet, at least for now. They don't have any empathy, right? And they cannot give a human touch feel to interactions, no matter how good an AI chatbot is. I've played around with almost all of them. None of them has empathy. None of them is preemptive. It almost sounds like I ask for something, I get something. I ask for something, I get, but a real bot would be like, in our domain, our vision is that if we had to redo our bot and make it better, it should actually tell me, hey, there's a long weekend coming up, and Udaipur is beautiful during this time of the year, and the prices are half of what they usually are in November, December, when you usually want to go to Udaipur. So why don't you plan a vacation right now, and I can book it for you for 20,000 rupees, right? That's the kind of recommendation and human touch that is required to make it more meaningful. But I think we'll get there. So this is all not impossible in the next 20 years. I'm sure that everyone sitting in the room, in our lifetimes, we are going to see AI completion. We are going to see revolutionary changes that the fourth industrial revolution will bring in. Thank you. With that, I come to a close. Thanks for the occasion and bringing this together to CMR and HP. It's been a wonderful event, and I look forward to the remaining sessions. Thank you.